Good afternoon, friends. This is a video on EBOO 5, the 5th generation extracorporeal blood oxygen ozonization system from the Indian Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. Here, whatever quantity of ozone that we are administering is administered directly into the blood. There are no barriers in the form of filters or membranes, and thus the amount of ozone available in the blood is the highest amongst all systems available in the world. This system does not use plastic renal filters. Haemofilteration and erroneously are different procedures altogether. EBOO means extracorporeal blood oxygen ozonization, meaning we are taking blood, ozonizing it and putting it back. There are no plastic renal filters to filter the blood, and ozone doesn't whiz across a membrane hoping that a little bit of it might stick to the blood. So this is against the conventionally performed plastic renal filter EBOOs, which in the opinion of the IAOS team is an incorrect method, as the entire administered ozone is absorbed by the blood. No destroyers are used. This is a teaching video and will show the complete steps of the procedure from the beginning to the end in real time, without speeding up and without any editing. First step is 400 ml of 5000 units per ml of heparin. That is 4 ml into 5000, that is about 20,000 units, are mixed in a 500 ml of saline, shaken and hung on a drip stand. So, first of all, we take a 5 ml syringe, we take a 5 ml vial containing 25,000 units of heparin. 4 ml is drawn from this vial and this is injected from the back of a saline bottle. The bottle is shaken to distribute the heparin. The needle is left behind in the bottle so that that needle can act as a air vent. The remaining 1 ml of heparin is mixed with 5 ml of distilled water and kept aside for later flushing. And the double-ended EBOO flask is opened and prepared and primed for the procedure. You can see that the saline bottle is hung to the stand. Now the remaining 1.5 ml of heparin is drawn. This 1.5 ml is mixed with 4 to 5 ml of distilled water the syringe is capped and kept aside. This is just a dilute heparin solution which is a standby. So, that is just kept aside. The sterile EBOO flask is a double-ended flask with silicone stoppers and a stainless steel diffuser for ozone. The cap opening is widened and we can see that there are three marks: a small circle, a large circle and a plus mark. The small circle is for the waste tube, the large circle is for the blood in, and the plus mark, into the middle of the plus mark goes the needle through which ozone will come. So, all these three are shown to you. The bottom end is used for delivering blood to the recipient site, and here we open up the metal piece to show the round large circle. Using an artery forceps, we are perforating the small and large circles to ensure the ease of insertion of our waste tube and ozone tube. The waste tube is now pushed into the small circle and the needle which is carrying ozone from the ozone machine is pushed into the plus mark of the top of the bottle. This leaves only the large circle empty, and into this the stainless steel spike from the donor site will be eventually entering. The EBOO flask is hung on its stand, and now the donor set is unpacked and primed. You can see the procedure. The donor set is taken out of the sterile packing and unpacked and unwrapped. The bulb end is given to the nurse to push into the heparin bottle. Heparin is allowed to flow, which is first flowing out of the bivalve. Then the bivalve will be twisted and heparin will be allowed to run through the silicon tubes, cross to the stainless steel tube and come out of the donor spike. In this process, the entire interior of the tube will be coated with heparin and thus will prevent any blood coagulation. The middle part of the donor set is now inserted into the perfusion pump and the steel spike is inserted from the top of the bottle. The positioning of the tube inside the perfusion pump must leave sufficient distance to allow the bivalve to be attached to either limbs. In case we do not get a vein on the left side, we may have to take the vein on the right side. So, the bivalve should be a little generously extended so that it can be attached freely, and this will show the complete steps. We are attaching the tubing to the perfusion pump, and then we are pushing the spike through the large hole. We have to identify the hole and push it with pressure. That should be at a lower level than the waste. So, we have the system in position. The perfusion pump is clamped in place after checking the distance to the vein. Now, we switch on the pump and see the flow direction, and also see a few drops of heparin are dropping into the bottle. So, here we can see that the pump is running and the primed heparin parts of it are dropping. We keep the motor at 8 ml per minute to start with, because we do not want very high speed in the beginning. That might make the vein collapse. A tourniquet is applied, an 18 or 20 G Venflon is inserted, and the donor bivalve connected to the donor site. So, here we can see the procedure. A velcro tourniquet is applied. We can go 18 G needle, 20 G needle, and in case of very frail veins, we can even go up to 21 gauge needle. We must remember that the speed of perfusion will commensurate with the diameter of our Venflon. Larger Venflons we can get better speeds, smaller Venflon we do not get high speeds. So, once the cannula is inserted, the bivalve is connected and the pump speed is adjusted so that the blood flows into the EBOO flask. So, you can see that a bivalve is inserted, heparin flow is opened, so that heparin mixed blood now flows into the bottle. We can now increase the speed of pumping to 12 or 14 till the blood actually starts dripping into the bottle. There is no hurry to increase the speed, and here the volume of blood ozonized is less relevant than the amount of ozone that is administered to the patient. The moment the diffuser tube dips into the heparinized blood, we start the ozone. For that matter, we start the ozone around the time the prime fluid itself has entered and the bottom of the filter is immersed in the bottle. So, I routinely, as per IAOS protocols we use, in the latest IAOS Mark 9 machine, we use the flow of 1/8 of a liter and switch 9, which provides 100 micrograms per ml, and you can see the ozone bubbling into the bottle and the blood has started trickling into it. So, more or less ozonization starts the instant blood trickles, and despite the waste opening from the top, there is no smell of ozone in the room, meaning 100% ozone is utilized. The recipient tube is now opened and this goes into the bottom of the EBOO flask through the larger circle. So, here we have opened the recipient side and the recipient bulb is pushed into the bottom after the recipient part is locked. We now switch on the UV lights and we have to wait till the flask is half full of donor blood. A sponge ball is given to the subject to squeeze so that the blood might flow more without interruption, uninterruptedly. So, here is the process. The patient is squeezing the ball, heparin is being dropped at a very, very low speed, the blood is going into the bottle is getting filled up and we are waiting for the bottle to be half full. As ultraviolet lights have been switched on, it is better to wear UV protected goggles. Both the patient and the operator and the staff wear these goggles. Exactly when the bottle is half full, only then the recipient vein is cannulated. So, while it reaches half full, we prime the recipient bulb, open up the recipient tube to take off all the air bubbles and make sure the blood reaches to the end of the tip. And now I am ready for my nurse to take a recipient vein. Recipient vein can be taken even in the wrist with a much thinner cannula. And the vein is taken. A very small and thin cannula is being used for the recipient side, and once the recipient site is identified and cannulated, the ozonized blood is attached to that. We open it at full speed to see that the vein is patent, and then the recipient site is anchored. Light tourniquet stays on the donor site, and if the patient has any discomfort, we can loosen the tourniquet and tighten it again. We can see that the color of ozonized blood is far different from the darker blood that goes in. No filters have been used. Despite this, the blood is bright red. Now, what is the setup? We can start from the beginning and till now and summarize it in the next video. So, from the donor side, heparin and blood are sucked together, low heparin and blood at 16, 18, 20 ml per minute. The whole thing goes through a perfusion pump which is sucking a blood heparin mixture, very, very low quantity of heparin. You can see the heparin bottle is practically full. That is being put into the bottle where ozone comes from the top and ozonizes the blood. The froth raises up, waste if any will come out through a tube. From the bottom of the bottle, ozonized blood is going into the recipient site. This single clip will show you the entire setup of the procedure. Now, important question, calculating the ozone dose that is administered in the blood. This is probably one of the most important slides in this talk. With the machine we are now using, at 1/8 liter of oxygen flow at 100 micrograms per ml of ozone dose, 1/8 of a liter will allow 100 microgram per ml of ozone constantly. Meaning, in 8 minutes, 1 liter of oxygen with 100,000 micrograms of ozone will be absorbed by the blood. So, in 32 minutes, 400,000 micrograms of ozone are absorbed. Dr. Prashant Shah of Mumbai and myself have spent countless hours and have experimented on ourselves, our relatives, and on a plethora of patients, and found that to be effective, EBOO needs 4 lakh to 7 lakh units of ozone, 7 lakh micrograms of ozone per patient per session dose. So, if you are ozonizing for 32 minutes, 4 lakh micrograms or 400 micrograms of ozone have gone into the body. And even after the donor site is removed, ozone continues to flow into the EBOO body, EBOO bottle, and thus the time calculated is from the start of the ozone machine and the regulator to the close of the ozone machine and the regulator, which in this particular case is going to be 40 minutes, meaning 5 lakh micrograms of ozone have been fully administered to the patient without the use of any destroyers and without liters of plasma being filtered and claimed as to be waste. Then comes the step of disconnection of the donor site. When we have thought that about 75 to 80% of the desired amount of ozone has been administered, the donor site is disconnected. So, for this, first switch off the machine, 2 close the heparin, 3 release the tourniquet, massage the arm, press the finger or thumb on the vein to stop overflow, disconnect the donor system, detach the heparin, and you can see that hardly 60 ml of heparin has been used out of 500 ml. Now, we switch on the pump, increase the speed and allow the remaining blood to empty into the flask. All this is happening in real time, no speeding up and no editing, so that you can understand the procedure fully. Once the entire amount of blood has gone into the flask, we switch off the machine after reducing its speed back to 8 for the next patient, and then the pump is removed, the pump is unclamped and the tubes are removed, and this ozone tube is now used as a waste tube. Additionally, we must remember that now only recipient blood is flowing, but still ozonization is happening. So, the 80% ozonization happened while donor and recipient were connected, and now only recipient is connected, still ozone is flowing. Now, once the duration is over and the bottle is almost empty, UV light are switched off, spectacles are extracted, the last of the ozone is allowed to flow, and then we have to remove the donor venflon and patching of the recipient venflon and patching of the recipient site. First, as the recipient is going on, we will remove the donor venflon, as heparin has been used. It is essential to use Dynaplast type sticky bandages so that the bandage does not come off easily, and the patient is told that the bandage has to stay for about 4 hours, because premature removal may cause some bleeding because of blood thinners, and that may cause panic in the patient. So, the donor site cannula is removed, a proper bandage is applied, and instructions are given that this should stay on the site for a minimum of 4 hours. In the meanwhile, the blood in the bottle has been completely emptied, ozone is switched off, the cylinder is turned off, and then once the last of the blood is from the flask flows back into the patient, the recipient cannula can also be removed. So, you can see the set being removed from the bottle, and sister is holding it to allow the blood to go back and drain to the patient. While that is being drained, our assistant will remove the bottle. You can see the only waste that comes from this EBOO is the foamy, frothy substance which is high in oxidized metals and is high in oxidized cells. Once the recipient site is empty, the set is removed, and now start the process for removing the cannula on the recipient side. Enough sanitizer or spirit is sprayed to ensure that the hair does not stick to the dynaplast. Pressure is applied, and then a dynaplast is applied, and that finishes the procedure. The patient has been sitting and smiling all throughout. Incidentally, this patient is an orthopedic surgeon, an ozone practitioner himself with an avascular necrosis of hip, and it has been pleasure that he travelled all the way to Palakkad to get his second EBOO. His hip has fully recovered. This is an ongoing lesson from Indian Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons on the online course on molecular therapeutics. If you want to learn more about ozone or hydrogen, you have to message me in WhatsApp. Please do not make voice calls because that phone is always on silent. but all messages will be answered within a reasonable period of time. This is a number to be messaged. Thank you for patient hearing of this talk. Though this talk is meant for EBOO practitioners and also practitioners of IAOS ozone course, I am posting it to some other groups also for people in general to know that EBOO is no big deal. You do not need a dialysis machine, you don't need renal filters. EBOO is not filtration, EBOO is extracorporeal blood oxygen ozonization, and EBOO is highly useful in a wide variety of conditions, as ozone is the most powerful antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antiparasitic, autoimmune regulator, and works well for diabetes, hypertension, thyroid, and is also an age reversal agent. Hope you enjoyed listening to this talk as much as I enjoyed preparing this lecture. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.